In the neighborhood of the castle of Wynendael, there dwelt a long time ago an aged peasant who had a son that was entirely devoted to a good hunt. He spent all of his time hunting in the forest. His father had often reapproached him and tried to persuade him to help him with his farm. When the old father lay on his deathbed, he called for his son to see him one last time and say his last words. The son came not, but whistling for his dogs went on into the forest for hunting. The old man was struck with despair, and he cursed his son with an appalling words, "Hunt them forever, aye, forever," before dying. From that time the unhappy son has wandered restless about the woods for eternity. At night he is frequently heard calling for his dogs, and then the whole neighborhood re-echoed with his call and the barking.
Hello, my name is Kate and I'm gonna tell about knights who don't need to throw death saving throw in DND. This is the first video of a short Death Knight series, where I will tell you about monster development, famous Death Knights and their stories. The tale I started with is an old Dutch tale of internal Huntsman in Wynendael, and there are lots of references like this in folklore about people cursed and living miserable eternal life.
Death Knight concept stretches through folklore to modern times, highlighting people who got cursed or tricked or just too loyal or too angry to die. The appearance of Death Knights in D&D can be traced back to first editions such as Field Folio, Dragonlance lore, monster manuals, novels, computer games, and in many materials after that.
So, who are the Death Knights? What drives them? And can you become one? Let's figure it out.
Legends about Death Knights can be heard across many races in many corners in multiverse, from humans to elves to sturdy dwarves. Being one of the youngest races, human stories of Death Knights are based on the one determination towards its goal. Warriors, clerics, paladins loyal to the cause and feeling desperate in the time of need, answering the call of dark, eldritch powers that promise power capable of finishing the quest. Other legends suggest trickery and deception, which either led to breaking of tenets or important vows and promises, which result in knights being cursed. For elves, the appearance of Death Knights is also connected to trickery by evil fae, which granted power to the fighter that eventually corrupts him, making him betray most loved ones and turning to hatred and anger instead. Dwarves legends speak of the greedy king who tried to prolong his life by any means. The king didn't have relatives or heirs, and so he ruled over eternity, becoming the Death Knight, and transforming his servants to undead as well.
It is said that the closest to the true origin of Death Knights are halfling legends, which tell about the evil hero who turned to demon lord Orcus for the power. Driven by thirst to revenge and vengeance, he sought power across all the realms until he found one in the abyss. He proved his worth to Orcus, and as a reward, after his death, Orcus turned him to the Death Knight, and that's how the first Death Knight appeared.
Death Knights are undead warriors who retain the intelligence and combat skills they had in life and languages spoken before transition. Often they have a specific goal or vendetta that provoked their transformations, but some simply fear the afterlife so much that they instead choose an eternal living death. Sometimes a group of Death Knights might form a group where the most ancient and powerful usually assume the leadership.
Take an example of Nazguls from Tolkien. Knights were tricked to become undead after their death. They still kept their loyalty to their rings and as a result to one ring, and they also have one leader.
In dim light or darkness, their eyes can be seen to glow dimly as yellow, red or orange colors, which is the only thing showing life inside them. Death Knights have no flesh or blood, they don't need to breathe or eat, which provides certain benefits in harsh environments. They're tireless warriors who only desire vengeance, conquest and revenge. The unholy powers keep them together, providing monstrous strength, the mind unspeakable wits, and the joints with lightning reflexes.
Through their lifetime, deathknights carries a weapon which can be of any sort. Two-handed sword, one-handed sword, long sword, short sword, halberd, mace, Morgenstern, you name it.
The weapon contains the soul of a knight inside, like leech phylactery, and it's bonded to its master. The powerful weapon is a part of deathknight, and the creature will always seek its weapon with determination and zeal if lost or stolen, and can even parley with one creature to trade something in return. It was rumored that the weapon of deathknight can pierce through armor reaching the flesh of a victim and cannot be wielded by anyone apart from the deathknight, the weapon weakening the unrightful owner, burning and corrupting the holder from the inside.
Continuing the analogy with Lord of the Rings, Sauron's ring was quite a soul weapon for him because he channeled all of his energies through it, and also the ring weakened and corrupted other bearers. Yet the difference is that deathknight's weapon can be destroyed at any moment, and deathknight can restore it back with a flick of his finger.
Other powerful attributes of deathknights are nightmare steeds from the abyss. Only the undead or demonic horses were capable of surviving all the horror and terror emanating from the night. Many of those horses could be found on lower planes. They are black as night, have fire raging from its hooves, and red glow radiating from eyes.
Through different editions, deathknight's abilities and powers varies a lot. So first they were presented as undead warriors, then more like lich wizards, and now they're back to more 50-50 approach. So let's look at all this transition together. I prepared a table which compares all of available stats from 1st edition to 5th edition. Of course, we won't be able to compare all of the stats because editions varies a lot, but it will give you a good idea how this creature evolved.
Through 1st and 2nd editions, armor was more of a cosmetic for the creature. The armor class always stayed at 0 no matter what the creature wore. Yet after that, deathknights gained some sturdiness through increased armor class and HP. What's also interesting is the transition from 3rd to 4th edition, where deathknights were deranked from wizardry and became a pure fighter class.
Yet they removed all ranged abilities and skills and then made him a fighter. And also what is interesting to know, that in 2nd edition of D&D, deathknight could learn 6 additional languages, while in 5th edition it shortened to 2, common and abyssal for some reason. And I believe this can be actually modified depending on the deathknight's origin, whether he's a dragonborn, lizardfolk, human, dwarf, or etc.
While losing quite potent magic turning and resistance, the creature gains a lot of specific resistances after 2nd edition, which were gradually reduced through to necrotic and poison as per most undead minions in current state. Yet, as a tribute to previous versions, the creators return magic resistance back, which acts a little bit different but still provides additional defense to the creature. In addition to major changes in 3rd edition, deathknights get dark vision, which only improves going forward, yet loses most of fighter feats during the last transition of versions. Latest changes brought the good old fireball back through Hellfire Orb ability, which is technically a 20d6 fireball with half damage done in fire and half damage done in necrotic, which makes it quite a useful ability.
Apart from that, the spells were returned, but a little bit reworked. Now they were based on a cleric/paladin spell list rather than wizard, which actually better suits the lore in my opinion. I added the table comparison to the description under the video, in case you would like to use it in your campaigns and research.
Apart from the mentioned powers, the evidence through the multiverse suggests that deathknights could command lesser undead such as zombies, skeletons, wights, banshees, swordwraths, and others. Those determined individuals who desire becoming a deathknight should have performed a ritual, which is an extremely rare find similar to the race type of lichdom. The ritual had different approaches to the goal. One demanded a sacrifice of a loved one, while another demanded death in a very specific conditions. Yet one condition was unified. the future Death Knight required to power its future soul weapon by bathing it in the blood of innocence. When all is done, the soul leaves the body and enters the newly formed sword phylactery, while the body is consumed by the unholy fire until only bones driven by hatred, anger and magics arise from the ashes.
But even in death, Death Knights remember about honor and pride. The creature would rarely trick an opponent, ambushing him from the behind, relying mostly on the brute force and straightforward attacks.
Death Knights are cursed to remain in their peak domains, which can be a castle or any demiplane. They spend eternity in the abandoned stronghold full of undead servants. Sometimes a Death Knight sings a song, which reminds him of the atrocities and crimes he committed before turning evil. Those unlucky who hear the song or interrupt it would be haunted by the creature until death or creature's destruction. Luckily, Death Knights can be destroyed by damaging their body. Unlike Lich, they cannot reincarnate from its sword. When the body of the knight is eliminated, the soul is no longer bound and leaves the weapon to wander the realms.
So, are Death Knights strong characters? From the lore perspective, it's a fearless undead killing machine with lots of determination, hatred and anger to all living things. Moreover, they are commanding undead minions and prove to be very skillful fighters. So yeah, it's quite a formidable foe. From a technical perspective, we have compared different editions earlier, yet Death Knights lost all of its wizard spells. It became a balanced combination of both. And I would say this is hero of might and magic could be a good combat challenge. And now a bit of DM tips on how to play it. If you introduce Death Knight as a major threat to your campaign, think of its story. Like what crimes it committed, what walls it broke, and who he tricked, or what power it wants. In 5th edition, they actually added that Death Knight's soul could be redeemed, but only if a creature atones to all atrocities it committed in the past. So maybe it can be an interesting plot hook. Remember, when fighting with a Death Knight, they never surrender as they don't know fear. And they will only parley if the party knows any information about his past or family, or they possess a weapon of Death Knight. And lastly, use Hellfire Orb to spice up the combat. That's all on the Death Knights. This is the first video on the short Death Knight series. Next, I will cover most famous Death Knights in the multiverse and tell you about their stories. And if you like the lore, please press like and subscribe button and tell me in the comments below who else you would like to hear about. And see you next time.